Steve Babineau, this guy right here, can talk your ear off. He is overflowing with stories. And if ever you want to hear stories from someone, it's Steve Babineau. He's been the Bruins team photographer since the 1970s, when Bruins coach Don Cherry was impressed by some of Steve's photos and called him to his office, a place that Steve had never been before.
I remember that day going to those hallowed doors and looking at it and then pushing the door open, and the office was right here. I see this newspaper, feet up on the desk, bathrobe, and it's Don Cherry, and I go, "Coach, I think you wanted to see me? Who are you?" I go, "I'm Steve Babineau." Well, by golly, paper comes down, bathrobe opens up, hand comes out. "I just want to thank you for those pictures down at the Boards and Blades Club. You captured my team in a way that it's unbelievable."
With that, Steve Babineau had the keys to the castle. And what he did with those keys over the next 4 decades was find every nook and cranny of Boston Garden, then TD Garden, to deliver some of the most unique and historic images in Boston sports history.
Playing the game in anticipation in a manual focus. You know, I tell a story that I remember getting my first 300 2.8 lens. That's the fastest lens in the world you could buy at that time. I would take my lunch on the side of 128 and pan cars going left to right because my position at the Garden was in the penalty box with no glass, just to get the focus down, the feel.
Babs became entrusted, a part of the storytelling as valuable as video.
Do you get a different sense of responsibility when you see that you're the person who ultimately is chronicling what's happening on the ice?
That kind of hit me when the NHL in 2007 made that decision to control all the photography, and they singled me out, you know, knowing that I had 35 years of the game, and asked me if I would seriously consider moving my archive to the National Hockey League. Well, sitting upstairs and sitting up there for 5 months while I sorted out my collection, and I'm going back through old photos and seeing Joe Sakic wearing number like 88 for the Quebec Nordiques. That was his first NHL game against the Boston Bruins. Seeing Ray Bourque in his first game. Seeing Bobby Orr in his last game. It's like, whoa, okay, this is pretty cool.
Steve was sucked into the world of hockey and lived the hockey life at close range. But it was baseball that had his heart from an early age. And his 40 years of baseball coverage is what he's celebrating this spring. As he touts his new Red Sox book, The Hometown Team, he's touring the region with colleague Mike Shalin, sharing stories with fans and passing on what he's learned behind the glass, on the court, and in the ballpark.
You've clearly got a love for hockey. What's different, or what do you like about baseball?
Well, I played baseball. So, I mean, I wanted to be a baseball player. I think I had the talent to be a baseball player, and I got hurt. So, you know, that was my dream to play. But playing the game and watching the game is totally different. Your mind is thinking in a different pattern when you're playing the game, and when you're photographing the game or watching the game, it sometimes can get boring. Shooting the game from the first base pit or the third base pit, I could do that for 2 or 3 innings, and then I got bored with it, and I wanted to move around. I just wanted to move around, and I know my colleagues sometimes, where's Babs? Where's Babs? Well, Babs is out on the Green Monster. Babs is up in the roof. Babs is over here. And I just felt that I didn't want to be repetitive.
Repetitive, almost unfathomable. A mind that broad cannot be pigeonholed. He bleeds passion, and naturally, that passion was passed on to his children, some of whom have carried the photography torch and run with it.
It's become like a legacy, you know, with the Babineau family, because my dad's been doing it for like 45 years. He's seen a lot of games, he's shot a lot of players, and for me to say that I've been doing it for 25 years now, between the two of us, we've been doing this for a long time.
I knew that I had some talent from the get-go at 15 years old when he had to cover the sporting news and the hockey news and the EA Sports video game. I said, okay, maybe I got something here.
I think he recognized very early on that I had a talent for photography, and he kind of took advantage of it.
So the legacy lives on. And while Steve is watching his kids succeed, and he was recently honored by the Bruins for 4 decades of work, he's not ruling himself out of the game just yet.
As long as these are still working, why would I not want to continue to keep shooting pictures?
Man, a magnetic personality, full of energy. You actually suggested I hook up with Steve and tell that story. I appreciate that, because you've known him for such a long time.
Well, anybody that's gone to the Garden knows Steve. He's one of those people, whatever you do in life, how many people do you walk by? You see them all the time. but you never hear their stories. Great job telling that story, because he's got unbelievable stories to tell, doesn't he?
There were a lot that I didn't share with you in this story, one of them being his relationship with Neil Young. First of all, this is a guy who loves Neil Young music and then was able to prove to Neil Young that he could shoot his performances from a different perspective with a different eye, a different artist's eye. And Neil Young loved what he saw, and he's had a relationship that stretches decades with him as well.
Steve's one of those people who, like I said, if you take the time to stop and you get to know them, he has a million stories to tell, but they're all interesting. You just need the time to listen to him.
And what you do, because Steve, he can talk your ear off, I'm telling you, but it's really fantastic because you really cross paths with people like that. And you got to meet his son.
Yeah,
Which
Brian.
I've seen Brian. I haven't talked to Brian. You had a chance to talk to Brian at the Garden and get those thoughts from him on his dad. And it's clear that he's got some insane talent himself.
Yeah, and you know, he's so soft-spoken compared to his dad, but he is a chip off the old block in a lot of ways.
They take a lot of pride in what they do. And one thing that is different now than in the old days, he was a hustler at his core. Steve had to sell what he shot, and he did that very well. So there's a part of him that he told me misses that. The part of picking up the phone and selling what he does and trying to earn that next buck. And it's very different because a lot of the rights now have been centralized by all the leagues.
I have a picture that Steve gave me that I'll tweet out. It was after the Sandy Hook shootings, and it was a puck drop, and it was the one teacher who survived. She dropped the puck. She was a friend of our family's. And he has Brian Jonta, the Canadiens captain, and Zdeno Chara, and she's on the ice. It's an amazing photo.
He's got a great eye. He's got a great soul, too.